Well, we're finally getting our snow. A couple of months ago, I ended up ripping out the pull rope trying to start this thing. But on the last pull, right before it snapped, it started. Gotta love it. Now, of course, there's no minute like the last minute to fix your sled once the snow finally starts falling. Need some proper motivation for that, right? We got ourselves some new pull rope. Let's get her done. No luxurious electric start to accommodate for having no pull start. First things first, we need to remove that muffler. Alright, well that was a lot easier than I thought. It's got a bolt there, a bolt right down there, and then a bolt here. Although I noticed there's another one down here that never had a bolt in it. You're not going to be able to see from this camera angle, but that frame deal there is like mostly blocking that bolt. Now I don't know if all triples are like this or if it's just mine. Mine has obviously been in a front end collision before. Things are kind of pushed back, and that's why these hood corners here are bonked out in the back. That might be why that bolt is blocked off on my sled. Regardless, whoever worked on this pull rope before me was thinking, left that bolt out. I'm not about to half remove the engine just to get one more friggin' rewind bolt. 3 will be good enough. Another thing that just never ever dawned on me is these things actually have a little belt for the water pump. I don't know. I just never thought about it. I always thought, you know, maybe it's like gear driven or some darn thing, but it just never occurred to me that there could be a belt under here that you gotta check, man. That would suck if that baby broke. It's pretty glazed, like it's been slipping. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty loose. I might want to tighten that up just a little bit. Not too much though, or I'll fry the bearings in the water pump. Looks like all I need to do is loosen this bolt here so it can pivot right there, and then loosen this adjuster bolt here and get something maybe right here. Just kind of gently pry and get that proper tension, and tighten this one and this one back up. Doesn't seem to look hard. Man, good thing I had to redo my pull rope. That might have resulted in a full throttle motor explosion, and we all know how much we love them. Here's this recoil here. I was just going to go ahead and line up where the rope ties onto with this and just thread the rope through and not have to take this all apart. But then I remembered just how miserable this pull start was, especially if it was colder than -15. That rope would just go in about this slow. You had to wait like a whole minute between every pull. Well, you know, I'm not really seeing too terribly much grease. Just a very thin but grimy layer. So yeah, I guess I'll just clean it up best I can. And honestly, it looks like this one might have been just left dry. I don't know why it was so slow on recoiling then. There's something on there. It's nasty. Oh, it just dawned on me now. Some of that's probably belt grime. You know, that fine rubber residue that gets absolutely everywhere around belts, especially if they're slipping. That makes sense. That's why she was so grimy. But we got her pretty cleaned out now. This one definitely does not have a bushing of any kind. It's just plastic sleeve in there. Alright, got our knot there, and now we're just going to sit here and wind this up. I don't know. I'll tell you how many turns it takes when I'm done. But I'm going to go ahead and put this apparatus back on it, because I should clean this little dog up here first. Well, I went ahead and tightened this up before I forgot about it. No, I think it'll be good. Very tough to make it slip now, so I'll have to actually look up the proper tension on that, because I definitely don't want to over tighten it and ruin the pump. But it's definitely a darn sight tighter than it was. And I always wondered why, as I'd be riding, especially if I was going over big whoops and stuff, I would hear my pull start here jingling. You know, the dog was lightly always trying to like engage onto the cup deal here. I was always hearing that while driving the sled, and I was wondering if like the whole thing was flexing or something and lightly pulling on the rope while you were driving. It turns out I was completely wrong, and I'm glad I am, because if it was flexing that much, the thing's about to break in half. But it looks like there used to be a spring. One end of it went here, and then the other end would have caught on this groove up here to hold this dog down. When you pull the pull rope, this thing here overpowers the spring, but then the second tension is let off, it pulls the dog right back down again to keep it in place while you're riding. Right now it can just sit there and kind of, you know, flop up and down as it pleases. So that's interesting, and I know that spring wasn't there when I took it out. I didn't accidentally lose it. I was very careful taking this one apart for once. I don't seem to have any springs that's going to fit in there properly, so what's most likely probably going to happen is eventually I'll just get a whole new pull start cup here, because it's starting to show some signs of wear, and it's probably original to the friggin' sled, so one of these days it's probably just going to break apart. This thing here is already breaking up, but the chunk is still in there luckily, so I'll just kind of half piece it back together and gently put it back in, because I'm sure with that piece missing, this thing would start acting sticky and stupid altogether. Regardless, that'll be for the future. At least I know that's not a big deal. I looked on the cup here, and you can see where that dog's been hitting on that cup there as it's trying to half engage while the thing's running. But from what I can tell, there's no damage. Can't feel any groove here. Of course you're going to get a little bit on the edges. It's definitely not as bad as it looks on the camera. So I think she'll be okay for another winter or 2 or 5, however long this goes before it falls apart. Alright, you know, I thought there wasn't enough gunk on the spinning parts to cause this thing to be so sticky. I realized it was this piece here. This is the part that sits in here and it pushes on this dog here to engage it. It's intended that this white disc stays stationary and this recoil spins independently, which then causes the dog to hit this part and bring it out. So there's got to be just the right amount of tension here so that it actually can push this dog out, but not too much tension that it restricts the recoil from winding back up. And that's what was happening. This was way too tight, I think, causing the recoil to just barely wind up, because it was doing the exact same things it was before, even after being all clean. So I guess I'm going to play with the tension of this thing for a while until I find a spot where it always kicks the dog out but allows the recoil to wind up again. Alright, I think we finally achieved détente. I really demonstrate a full pull with one hand, but she's retracting like she should now. Alrighty, well, I did 6 turns on that recoil, and that seems to get the pull rope back to that point pretty good. We'll have to see, time will tell. I'll update you in the description if it happens to need more turns in the future, but I'm thinking 6 turns is like the bare minimal. Of course, there's going to be different factors, you know, like how tight that little dog actuator spring deal is and whatnot, but this seems to be about right. The pull rope before used to be too short. You're always hitting the end of the rope whenever you'd start it. So I gave it an extra about a foot. Oh yeah, it's perfect. Reaches just to the back of the seat now. That's more than enough. Another issue that I'm going to have to probably sort out here in the near future is this grommet here is like, or whatever you want to call it, super worn out. It'd be nice if I could spin that in there, but I doubt I could. Might just end up breaking it. It's too bad they make that rope pull up at such an angle. Anyways, I'll get the muffler back in and we'll fire it up. At least the mufflers are easy to take out on these things. Just a couple of springs and away you go. I think there's supposed to be another one in the back here somewhere, but that is also omitted. Oh, just still forgot that fuel pump bolt. Where is it? Here. Get that bugger back in there. Woo! Well, only about 50 pulls later, he's running. Well, other than the primary and the secondary clutch needing to be rebuilt, she's still going like a champ. Right on.